Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by two great apps, 1Password and DevonThink. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my co-host, Federico Vitici. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I am recovering from WWDC, I think, still, because I find myself staying up really late at night one night and then going to bed really early the next night. I just can't quite get back into my normal patterns. How about you?
Yeah, I've been struggling with getting back to a normal schedule. Been going to bed at like 5 a.m. because my body thinks it's actually like 9 or 10 p.m. and waking up 5 hours later. So that's been fun. Also, as I was going through that, I also needed to get some writing done. So that was quite a week, quite an experience.
Yeah, it really was. It was interesting to me. I mean, a couple episodes ago, in episode 58, we talked about some of the things we wanted to see for the Mac App Store and the Mac app ecosystem in general. And I was really pleased to see that Apple is actually doing some of the things that we had talked about. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it was a good WWDC in the sense that a lot of us were expecting sort of a boring year. And I think instead we got quite a few interesting announcements, especially two of them. I wasn't expecting WWDC to be this busy in terms of just how so many things to cover for iOS and watchOS and macOS, really not tvOS, because nothing is happening there.
Because tvOS.
Yeah, but still, I think it was a fun week. Despite I didn't have high hopes, flying to San Jose.
No, I didn't really either. And one of the things that I didn't expect at all is that we'd see so many new and updated apps, whether you're on the Mac or on iOS or watchOS. And so I thought today what we could do is talk about some of those and go through them, because this is App Stories, and I thought we'd talk about the apps of WWDC.
That's a great idea. All right. So want to start from iOS?
Yeah, let's start with the new ones. We have two new ones. The first, which kind of left me scratching my head, is Measure. It's an ARKit app that shows off the ARKit API that allows you to measure stuff in the real world. You look at it through a camera viewfinder, and you have a little target, and you can tap it when you've lined it up with the edge of whatever you're measuring. It has haptic feedback, and you then kind of trace along whatever edge you're measuring, tap it again, and it overlays on the item in the real world a line showing exactly how big it is. And it's very accurate. I've been pretty impressed with it. I haven't used it a lot, but I've used it for measuring things on my desk and around the house. And it only leaves me scratching my head, though, because it feels like the kind of app that Apple would have introduced when ARKit first came out. And we've got things like MeasureKit, which is a third-party app that's quite good. It just, the timing seemed a little odd to me, but it does do a good job of showing off the APIs.
Yeah, I'm actually playing with it now, and it is pretty accurate. So I'm measuring my MacBook Pro.
That's what I did too.
So do you have iOS? You have iOS 12 on your phone, right?
I do.
All right. And I think it's actually quite nice. I mean, it doesn't have all the options of MeasureKit.
Right.
But I really do like the way that Apple is using haptic feedback sort of to guide you when you're measuring things in the app. Also, I really like the calibration aspect, the way that Apple is dealing with, for example, telling you that you should move your phone around. There's all these animations going on in the middle of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love that when after you measure something, you can just tap on the little result, and it gets bigger in the middle of the screen, and it gives you measurements in imperial scale, and also in the metric unit scale, and you can copy the result. There's a button that copies the result to the clipboard.
Yeah, and you can also take a picture of it, which is kind of nice too, if you want to remember what it is that you were measuring, which is pretty cool. And the UI follows along whatever surface you're measuring, so you know that it's detecting the thing that's maybe horizontal on a table as opposed to the wall behind it. They're all like little nice touches that make it very easy to use.
Yeah, just measured the screen, and of course it's a 13-inch MacBook Pro, and it says 13 inches. So
as advertised, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, we should note that in iOS 12, because of this Measure app, which I assume it's going to be pre-installed on every iPhone that supports ARKit, and therefore iOS 12, the level feature that used to be in Compass is now part of Measure. So the Compass app is now just a Compass. The level is gone and it's been integrated into Measure. So it's the
Interesting. I had missed that. Yeah, I did use the level and found that my desk is at a 1 degree angle, and so now I have to live with that knowledge.
Yeah, my desk is at a 1 degree angle too. So
maybe it's the app.
we are 1 degree angle buddies.
Okay.
From that point of view. All right. So if we're talking about iOS, the biggest news of the event is the Shortcuts app.
Right.
So there's a story on Mac Stories about Shortcuts. Shortcuts is actually two things. There's the system component, the system aspect of shortcuts, maybe call them, I don't know, lowercase shortcuts, which are actions that every app can offer. There's going to be app shortcuts available in Spotlight on the lock screen. Siri is going to suggest those shortcuts for you, and you will be able to also assign a custom phrase from settings to any shortcut. Shortcut could be ordering a coffee at Starbucks or checking into your reservation at a hotel. These app shortcuts depend on developer support, and there's, like I said, there's an entire article that you can read that I wrote last week, which people seem to really like. So it's an overview of shortcuts, and you can go read that for the system part. For the application part, shortcuts with the uppercase S is the new version of Workflow. Essentially, the Workflow team was acquired last year by Apple, and we spent the past year wondering what happened to Workflow, and now we know it's Shortcuts. And Shortcuts, the app, allows you to create custom shortcuts, which are, again, workflows. It literally looks the same. There's the same editor. There's the same main screen with a library of your workflows or a gallery of, I keep saying workflows, I should say custom shortcuts created by Apple. And when you open the editor, it's the same drag and drop environment. As I shared in the story, my understanding is that Apple wants to keep full compatibility with existing workflows, and Shortcuts is going to be on the App Store. So it's not clear at this point if it will be just an update to the existing Workflow app or a separate app on the store. Will it be pre-installed like Clips? I think Clips is pre-installed on every iPhone, but also it's from the App Store, which allows Apple to issue updates at a more frequent schedule than full iOS updates. And yeah, this is the future of workflows. Workflow, you should be able to keep all your workflows and migrate them to the new Shortcuts app. It looks fantastic. There's support for magic variables, for standard variables. There's a bunch of new actions, including Show Result, which is a Siri integration. You can trigger these custom workflows with custom phrases, and you can do so on your iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, HomePod, and even CarPlay, because all of this stuff syncs with iCloud and your Siri account. So this is pretty, I'm so excited that this is pretty awesome. I'm so happy that the Workflow team was able to advance their vision inside Apple. And even though we don't know much at this point about shortcuts, we don't have a beta yet. And I really hope that there's going to be, I don't know, a test flight or some kind of beta with shortcuts being built into the system in beta 2 or beta 3. I don't know. Still, I think this is the best announcement from WWDC. But I'm biased, of course, but I really do believe that the Shortcuts app will be super fun to play around with.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I really, really want to try this. And it's not in the beta now, as you said, and we don't know if it's going to be a test flight, which is limited to 10,000 users, or if it'll be dropped into the iOS beta and downloadable during the beta period, but then, be removed and put in the App Store at the end of the summer in September when iOS 12 actually comes out.
When I saw that on the website, I was really happy that they said it's going to be on the App Store, because that means that they know they need to have more frequent updates.
Right.
I do wonder about future third-party integrations in Shortcuts, because there will be, I think there will be support for URL schemes and existing actions that will be kept around. But also there will be native actions with the app shortcuts that are built into the system. So it'll be fun to see how many third-party apps want to use the old system or the new one. So I'm sure we will do at least a couple of episodes about shortcuts when it comes out.
Yeah, we absolutely will. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by 1Password. Everyone uses passwords, but too few of us use them safely. Secure random passwords are hard to remember, so people reuse them, which is a big problem. Instead, use 1Password to store all of your passwords behind a single, hard-to-guess master password that only you know, and let the 1Password app help you generate long, random passwords that are secure. Then, when one of the sites that you use has a data breach, you're not facing exposure across multiple sites. 1Password does much more than just create and store passwords, though. You can also evaluate your current online security with Watchtower. It's a great feature that can audit your passwords for repeats and weak passwords, alert you when apps and services that use two-factor authentication are available but you're not using it yet, and even alert you when a site for which you have a password has been compromised. It's your early warning system that helps you stay on top of your security. With 1Password's help, it's easier than ever to log into accounts, fill in credit card details, and so much more. 1Password can even store secure notes, travel documents, credit card information, banking details, documents like tax returns, and much more. And there's a travel mode so that when you cross borders, you can remove data from your mobile devices and then restore it when you arrive at your destination. Everything syncs across all platforms too, with end-to-end strong encryption. On top of that, if you have a problem, there's friendly one-on-one support available 24/7. App Stories listeners can get 3 months of 1Password free by visiting onepassword.com/appstories and signing up today. Again, that URL, which will be in the show notes, is onepassword.com/appstories. Go ahead, forget your passwords. 1Password remembers them all for you, and get 3 months free with App Stories today. Thanks again to 1Password for supporting the show. There were a bunch of apps updated too, which I don't think anybody really saw coming. But before we get into before we get into things like stocks,
Oh God, do we have to?
yeah, we do. Before I get into that, I want to mention messages because we got memojis, and this is really why I put iOS 12 on my iPhone before I even left San Jose, because these are so fun. I mean, we sat around with friends of ours creating our memojis. As we hung out at the coffee shop and things, and they're really fun. They look great. They're just I don't know. they're like Animoji but better.
I love memojis, even though I'm still trying to spell them with the Nintendo Me.
Oh yeah,
MII.
Right.
It's Memoji with the E. I love them. I made one, and people seem to appreciate the work that I put into it because everybody told me that it looks just like me. So that was fun.
Yours is very good. Yes, yours is one of the best I've seen. I think Mike's is excellent too.
Yeah. I've seen a bunch that are actually super accurate. I think it's fun, and I think it's interesting that, to make a bigger point here, that these Memoji, is it Memoji or Memojis? I don't know. I'd say Memojis because it makes more sense. They are going to be integrated at a system level, not just in messages, but also in things like FaceTime,
right?
Where you can use a Memoji as a real time effect, and you can talk to a friend with a giant Memoji head, which is kind of creepy but also fun because it's so big. I think it's actually a little too big. This is something that I was telling Mike last week. We were at the airport together, and I was FaceTiming my girlfriend, and I was using Memoji. And something that I noticed in beta 1 is that the Memoji head, I get why it needs to be extremely big, because otherwise it will be kind of uncanny to have a fake virtual head on your body.
Sure.
But the problem is that because it's too big, I need to extend my arm farther from my face, because otherwise it doesn't fit in the frame.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think it should be just slightly smaller. This is I'm officially filing a radar on a podcast, because that's a thing now. That's a thing.
Are you filing a radar about your arms, that your arms are too short? Is that the idea?
No, that's not the idea. My arms are fine. The idea is that the Memoji head is too big and it should be slightly smaller.
All right. I get it.
Well, what do you call a radar on a podcast? A sonar?
Sonar, let's call it. There we go. It's a sonar. Now we don't have to file the radar because everybody at Apple is listening to this. So
right.
I think we're set.
Yes.
You mentioned FaceTime, and FaceTime got a bit of an overhaul. You can use Memoji in it, but you could also do group chat, and you can do group chat up to 32 people, which is insane.
Yeah, we've gone from 2 to 32. It's like,
I know.
I would have been perfectly content with like 6 people. or
Right.
5 people. That would have been fun. 32 feels like, oh yeah, you want a group chat? Now there you go. You got 32 people. Have fun.
Right. We need to test this out and get a big group together. We haven't done that yet. I don't think enough people have the beta yet, but
I don't think I have 32 friends, but still.
not on the beta. Maybe we do. We'll figure that out and report back at some point. But what else is there that got updates? We had
news. News got an update. So on the iPhone, it kind of looks like the old version, except the For You page has been renamed today, which makes sense because you're browsing the latest news. There's still Spotlight, and there's the last page, I think it's called Browse, that allows you to configure a bunch of like notifications.
Yeah, they changed it a little bit on the iPad too, though. They broke out some of those sections so that you see your channels and things listed in the sidebar on the left now.
Yeah, there's a sidebar on the left, which was probably done for consistency because the iPad version of news is also coming to the Mac with macOS Mojave based on Project Sneak Peek, which basically
Project Sneak Peek. Yes,
it's Apple called that sneak. It's a sneak peek. It's not Marzipan. It's a sneak peek.
I know. It's nothing like Apple in naming. We have no name, so we'll just call it Project Sneak Peek from now on.
Yes.
So in addition, that was kind of an interesting part of the keynote because everybody was scratching their head and wondering, why are we hearing so much about news? And they also updated voice memos and stocks, 2 apps that I don't think a lot of people use a lot, but Stock's got, I guess, some nice additions. There's Apple News stock information has been added to the app, as have these Spark graphs, and the graphs are now interactive. All nice additions to an app that's hasn't been touched in years and years. Same goes for voice memos. That's been gotten itself an iPad version, and the memos that you record are synced using iCloud. So that's nice. But there was a lot of time spent on this, and I think we all had that sinking feeling initially, like, wow, there is going to be nothing during this keynote if they're talking about stocks this early in the presentation. But it turned out that those two, along with what was it?
Home.
That's right. Home and News are all coming to the Mac, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting for me. I'm really happy that iOS apps are coming to the Mac, especially iPad apps. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a minute because I'm sure that you, as a heavy Mac user, you have some thoughts about this. Just let me briefly mention Safari on iOS. It's got new anti-tracking features. So, for example, Apple is now making sure that those social buttons or comment fields that you often see in web pages, in addition to allowing you to share comments or share links on social networks, they often include some really clever tracking code that tracks you around the web and tracks you across your browsing history. So Apple with Safari is now using the machine learning engine that they built into the browser to make sure that they understand what these buttons and icons and comment fields that are using tracking, they're blocking them, and the engine is learning, so you should get better over time. And finally, both on iOS and on the Mac, as you will mention later, you can now enable in settings favicons for tabs. So just like Google Chrome, Safari can now show you the favicon for a website, and it appears that, because I've tested that with Mac Stories, if you have an SVG icon, so a scalable vector icon, instead of the favicon.ico low resolution file, it'll use that. So it'll also look great on Retina displays.
Yeah, I saw that there was an article by I think Craig Hockenberry on the Icon Factory talking about that. Yeah.
Yes. I think that's the same icon that used to come up on the touch bar or somewhere else, maybe. Anyway, podcasts on iOS, and this has been extremely surprising to me. It now supports chapters. I think the proper terminology is MP3 chapters. Is that correct?
I think that's right.
Yeah, so the chapters that everybody uses, if you listen to App Stories or shows on Relay FM or, basically all of the shows that support chapters in apps like Castro or Overcast, now you will also see chapters in the Apple Podcasts app. They are time-stamped. You can tap on them to jump to the chapter. You can ask Siri to jump to the next chapter.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and you will also see custom chapter artwork in the now playing screen. So chapter support integrated in the now playing view. If you scroll up, you will see show notes, chapters, and your queue. So I was using the Apple Podcasts app before. I was kind of missing the chapters and I was kind of planning on going back to something else. But now on iOS 12, I got chapters and I'm perfectly happy.
All right. Well, that's good. There's one other iOS app that we should mention, which is Books, which is formerly iBooks, right?
Oh, yes.
It got a lot of UI changes. The store has been improved. I think it looks a lot nicer. It's designed to try to make it easier to find things there. And there's new features like that's a little bit like Goodreads. This a Goodreads-like feature that lets you know other books you might want to read. So it's, I'm not a big user of iBooks, but it's good to see it getting a little love because at times, especially the store, just looked kind of like a reskin of the App Store.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the work they've put into Books. It looks so much better than I was expecting. Like you, I was thinking that it was probably going to be like an App Store-like type of update. And
Right.
Instead, it just feels like a digital bookstore, and it feels like Apple is bringing back some of the design elements and some of the old guidelines that made iBooks so much fun, at least the original version, like shadows and serif typography. They're actually using a new version of San Francisco called San Francisco Serif.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, of course, Apple is now doing everything custom with San Francisco, but still, it looks amazing. And I'm not really a book person, but this app makes me kind of want to be one. I know it's never going to happen. Still, it's just pretty to look at.
you could just buy some books and download them and flip through them once in a while. You don't have to actually read them, Federico.
What's the point, though?
Well, I'm just trying to help you. I mean, you like the app, so why don't you just use the app
Sure.
without reading the book?
Sure.
All right. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by DevonThink Pro and DevonThink To Go, professional-grade document and information management for the Mac and iOS. The strength of DevonThink starts with the fact that it can handle all kinds of documents, including PDFs, Office documents, media files, bookmarks, text files, you name it, the app can handle it. That means you can organize all those files in one place, making it easy to retrieve them. This is probably the most important aspect of DevonThink. Whether you're on your Mac or iOS device, all of your documents are ready at your fingertips. DevonThink Pro even lets you edit most of the file types right within the app, so it's easy to make adjustments without opening an editor. With the ability to drop so many different kinds of files into DevonThink, though, it's important to have good search, and DevonThink has it. It uses artificial intelligence to search for your information, returning only the most relevant results for your queries. DevonThink also understands that you work in other apps too. With universal item links, you can create a URL that you can drop into another app, and when you click it, it takes you right back to the item in DevonThink. It's a fantastic feature. DevonThink syncs across the Mac and iOS too, and unlike a lot of apps that only give you one or two ways to sync, DevonThink gives you a bunch of different options. It's got iCloud, Dropbox, WebDAV server, and local Wi-Fi syncing all built right in. And what's great about DevonThink Sync is that it's secure. It uses AES 256-bit encryption to keep your data safe and protected no matter which platform you're on. And on iOS, you can lock your data behind a passcode, Touch ID, or Face ID, depending on which kind of iOS device you have. DevonThink Pro is also highly customizable and supports AppleScript for powerful automation. One of my favorite aspects of DevonThink, though, is DevonThink To Go, the iOS app, because it means I can take my data with me and have it wherever I go. The app integrates with Apple's Files app for easy access to my documents. To Go even supports URL commands for easy automation. If you've ever felt like there must be a better way to organize all of the information on your Mac and iOS device, there is. It's DevonThink. Check it out today and get 10% off DevonThink Personal, Pro, or Pro Office for the Mac if you decide to buy using the coupon code AppStories. There'll be a link in the show notes. Thanks again to DevonThink for supporting the show. Let's move on to macOS because the big news was the sneak peek, as we already said, which is a way for iOS developers to bring apps over from iOS to macOS. And Apple had 4 examples for us, which was great. They have Stocks, News, Home, and Voice Memos, which are all iOS apps that have all been ported to macOS. And it's interesting to look at them and see exactly what's being done here, because two of these apps are tab bar apps, and they've both been treated differently. Home, which is a tab bar app on iOS, had its tabs moved up into a segmented control at the top of the window, and News, which has tabs along the bottom, at least on before iOS 12, is moving all that content to a left-hand sidebar, which is also how it's going to look on the iPad going forward in iOS 12. Interesting way to do it. The other two apps, Stocks and Voice Memos, are basically single view apps on iOS, and they've got a little slightly different treatment, but I think they're just good examples of simple utilities and how they might look on macOS.
So personally, I think this is amazing because it means that when I use my Mac a few times every week when I have to do podcasts, I will have the same apps or roughly the same apps that I have on my iPad, because in theory, this technology, which should be released to developers in 2019, should allow more companies and more developers to bring their iOS apps to the Mac. So I'm really excited about this, and especially if the other way around is also true. If Mac developers can, if Mac design elements or Mac technologies can influence developers who want to make iPad versions. So maybe those developers will think more deeply about using sidebars, taking advantage of a widescreen layout, or taking advantage of keyboard shortcuts. But I want to ask you as a heavier Mac user than me, are you happy that Apple is doing this stuff?
Oh, I'm very happy about it. I think it's a great idea. There's a lot of holes in the Mac ecosystem in terms of software. I mean, for instance, you and I talked quite a bit on this show about RSS readers, and there just aren't that many on the Mac. There's all sorts of great ones on iOS, but very few of them have made their way onto the Mac. And this could be a great way to just move those over. Other things like, casual games, Twitter, which abandoned the Mac. Maybe they could. I hesitate to suggest that they bring their iPad app over.
Oh God, that's so
because
bad.
It's a terrible, terrible app. But they could bring. They could maybe if they stuck to more the something more along the lines of the iPhone app, it would work. But it's a way for companies that may not have wanted to invest the time, effort, and money in creating a native Mac version of an app to bring that along without a lot of extra work. I mean, it'll remain to be seen exactly how much work it is, but it looks as though Apple has tried really hard to make this a fairly simple process. It's not going to work for all apps, but I think it's a great way to go from, tens of thousands of apps on the Mac to hundreds of thousands, or, maybe we'll even approach 1 million someday. But we've got over 2 million on iOS. There's no reason why a large number of those can't come over to the Mac too and give us more options there.
Right. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this stuff, especially if also Apple starts taking advantage of this, and maybe we could see, shortcuts on the Mac, or we could see clips on the Mac.
I'd like to see podcast players too. I mean, think about that. I mean, there are very few podcast players that have a Mac client. It'd be nice if you could have Overcast or Castro or Pocket Casts. Any of them, just come on over.
If you think about it, there's probably here's an article idea for you. I'm gonna share an article idea on the show. What if this project finally allows Apple to discontinue iTunes, because they now have a way to bring over podcasts, to bring over the TV app
and the music app.
So maybe another side effect of Project Sneak Peek will be the one last version of macOS that has an iTunes app. Because maybe next year, Apple will bring over everything from iOS and there will no longer be iTunes, because everything will be a standalone Sneak Peek-based application for the Mac.
Yeah, and then maybe some of those settings and other things that syncing and can just be moved into system settings or something along those lines.
So there you go. There's an article idea for you.
I like it. Maybe you'll see that on Mac Stories someday soon. Maybe after, maybe sometime in July.
All right.
So what else should we talk about? We've got some news on watchOS, You already mentioned what's going on in the Podcasts app on iOS. What's coming in on watchOS?
There's a podcast app finally that you can use to listen to episodes as you're just wearing the watch, and you can connect to AirPods or other Bluetooth headphones. I think it downloads episodes. I'm not sure because I don't have a cellular watch. In theory, if you have a cellular watch, it should also be capable of streaming them.
Okay.
I think in my case, it just downloaded them. What I don't like is that it seems to default to the latest episode that you have available for any show that you subscribe to. It uses the same carousel UI of the music app on the watch. So you need to spin the digital crown to browse episodes. Then if you scroll all the way back to the top, you can also browse your library. And that's where you can find all previous episodes, which is kind of slower, but I get it. What I don't understand is I wasn't able to find a way to actually archive episodes from the watch. So it seems like any management feature needs to be done on iOS. Or maybe I'm stupid, or maybe it's just a beta and it'll come later. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a hidden interaction somewhere that I wasn't able to find. So I'll keep looking. But otherwise, it works, and I'm really happy because now when I'm working out or just doing things without my iPhone, I can control podcasts and I can play a different one without having to ask Siri. So yeah, that's really good news.
You are a very brave person for putting the watch beta on
Tell me about
watch.
it. So if you're listening and you're curious, you're like, oh, now I should put watchOS beta on my watch. Don't. It's so buggy. And just to give an example, when I work out with watchOS 5 beta 1, sometimes just randomly at some point during my workout, could be 10 minutes in, could be 25 minutes in, calorie counting just stops working. So I noticed the other day I was doing a really intense workout and I was at 200 calories and I kept going. In theory, I should have been at 400, but no, the watch stopped counting at 250. So I just lost 150 calories that I actually burned because the watch stopped counting them. And there's all kinds of bugs. So just wait at least. I don't know if there's going to be a public beta watchOS, but if there's not, maybe you just want to wait.
That doesn't sound great. I saw your tweet about that, and I thought to myself, I'm very glad that I didn't put that on. Yeah. And actually, Apple, I think the day after, the keynote was on Monday, all the betas got released, and before the end of the day, or maybe it was the next morning, Apple actually pulled the watchOS beta because it was bricking watches at WWDC. And then they set up a lab in the conference center to help people whose watches have gotten bricked during the conference. So yeah, it's definitely more risky than I think some of the other betas, and it's a good idea to wait.
Yeah.
So since you do have it on your watch, what can you tell me about walkie-talkie? I guess you probably don't have anybody to talk to on walkie-talkie.
Exactly, because nobody. I should actually maybe just try and ask Rene Ricci. If I'm sure he has a beta already. But no, when I open walkie-talkie, it just says coming soon. Now, literally, it just says walkie-talkie, there's an icon, coming soon. That's what the app says on my watch. I don't know if it's because I don't have any walkie-talkie compatible friends, but the idea would be that just like a walkie-talkie, you push down, you talk, and the other person needs to be in the same screen so that they can listen live to you talking. Honestly, I think if it's done well, if it's fast, I'm going to be using this with my girlfriend at home all the time when I'm like in another room and it's too far away to just yell something, but it's also doesn't make sense to call her on the phone. Like I wish there was a way that wasn't like, because calling someone on the phone from inside the house is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
but also I don't want to yell because I'm going to disturb people and I'm going to wake the dogs if they're sleeping. So, a low friction device to device communication system for when I'm in a different room and I don't want to get up.
I was going to say, so you never have to get up again.
No, but maybe, for example, I'm on the bike. So I'm on the bike outside. And
that's a good use case.
Like the bike is actually noisy. And I'm also in another room. The door is closed. Mm-hmm. So I could use something like that. So I definitely want to try that, but I'm not going to put watchOS beta on my girlfriend's watch because she's going to kill me. So we'll have to wait and see.
I think the only other watchOS thing worth mentioning is an update to the workout app. And it's adding yoga as a workout, as well as award competitions. So you can compete with your friends for awards, which we'll have to give that a shot at some point.
Yes.
And then
yes. And I will destroy you.
yes, you will. I'm working on it. I'm going to get there, and I'll destroy you back.
All right, we'll see.
This is exactly what it's for. There's also auto start and auto end workouts, which is really nice. That's something I've wanted from the very beginning because it's so easy. Especially, this used to happen to me mostly when I would like go on a long walk. I just wanted to count the exercise a little better, and I was just maybe walking down to the store or something, and I'd get to wherever I was going, and I'd just forget to turn off my watch. I'd sit down, have a coffee or something, and like a half an hour later, my workout's still going and my battery's draining.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that. I want to see how well it works. Apple is doing a bunch of automatic things with watchOS this year. Like, for example, you don't have to say to invoke Siri with the voice command anymore. In theory, you should just be able to raise your wrist and talk. So that automatic mode, I haven't been able to try it out yet, but I'm super skeptical of like, how can you actually know if I'm talking to Siri or I'm just raising my wrist for some random reason and talking to somebody else? So I don't know. If you get any random messages from me saying a bunch of bad things, is because I'm talking to somebody about you, and it's not flattering. I don't really do that. I always say nice things about you, John.
Okay.
You know that.
All right. All right. So we need to wrap this up, but I wanted to mention a couple of other things too. First of all, CarPlay is going to support third-party navigation apps, which I don't think anybody saw coming. I think everyone assumed that it was going to be Apple Maps or nothing for here till eternity, but Google Maps, Waze, all that stuff is going to work in CarPlay now, which is great because those are good apps.
Yeah, you're the only CarPlay person I know, so I trust you. I trust you on this.
I haven't tried it yet, but I'm looking forward to giving that a shot. And then I wanted to ask you about an app that you used at WWDC. These are not from the announcements, but you were at the conference, and attendees used an app called Challenges to compete, right?
Yeah, it was so this app is built by the Lose It team. Lose It is a popular fitness tracker app to calorie counting. It does a bunch of things, and it allows you to compete with friends by integrating with the activity app and setting up a profile so that it fetches data from activity, and then it lets you compete with friends over a specific challenge. And in this case, Apple allowed people to form teams for the week of the conference and set goals based on their activity data. And at the end of the week on Friday, if you completed the challenge, so you needed to unlock a certain number of points, you went to a dedicated area and you showed them the Challenges app, you showed them that you completed the challenge, and Apple gave me an exclusive activity pin, which is really nice. Yeah.
Okay, Federico, I think that's a pretty good place to stop. I want to thank our sponsors again, 1Password and Devon Think, and we'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, you can read what we're writing over at macstories.net, and you can find Federico on Twitter. He's at Viticci, that's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.